Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Coffee with Bobbi. Today, I'm having coffee with Sakari Smithwick. Growing up in Long Island, New York, along with spending childhood summers in North Carolina, Sakari has always been inspired by the food that surrounded him. Coming from humble beginnings, Sakari's journey began as a McDonald's grill cook at the age of 15. He's continued to gain experience and hone his craft, working at restaurants such as 11 Madison Park, Marea, and Restaurant Ukiyo, where he helped gain a Michelin star, just to name a few. In 2019, Sakari competed on Food Network's Chopped. In the end, Sakari finished impressively second, making it to the final dessert round. After spending the past 11 years honing his craft, he is now focused on bringing his vision alive with Noble Promise. His mission is to redefine what soul food is and use food to bridge the gap between different races in America. Sakari, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great. It's my pleasure. And that intro was snap it up. That was great. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you. Well, it's all accolades to you. This is everything that you've done, plus more that you're not sharing in that bio.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, what's been new happening in your world lately?
Right now, all my energy's been focused on getting Noble Promise off the ground, um, raising my awareness for the brand and just finding investors, building my team, and just kind of letting people know what Noble Promise is and like what it's all about, basically.
So, tell us a little bit more. What is Noble Promise and what is it all about?
So Noble Promise, cooking from the soul. It's a mantra to me in my childhood. So growing up, Sakari, it means Noble Promise in Swahili, which is like an East African Bantu language. And growing up throughout my entire childhood, I always believed that I had a kind of like a promising future and to always keep to my word. So like throughout my childhood, I always thought that, got a tattoo of it, really believed in that. And then I thought one day, I said, you know what, this is my brand and this is what I want my restaurant to be and just kind of focused on that. So it's Noble Promise, cooking from the soul, and we're really just trying to make fine dining because that's where my background is from, more approachable for everyone. And I wanted to, with food. It's like you're able to bring everybody together from all different walks of life. It's a common ground for everyone. So I think through Noble Promise, we'll be able to kind of just bridge the gap between different races in America. And that's really what my goal is with Noble Promise.
Oh, I love it because in essence, we all love that soul food. And you're
Yeah,
right. We all want to be sitting at that table and in a restaurant. It's open to everybody.
exactly. Exactly. And you know what the thing is with soul food, it's like people think soul food is just Southern comfort food, right? Like they think macaroni and cheese, collard greens, that's the things. But for me, soul food is about cooking from the soul. It's about having a dish or like cooking with lots of love. And that could be anything. I feel like if a dish or a food has a story behind it, it has a soul. And that's what Noble Promise is all about. It's not just the regular foods that you might kind of accompany or think that it is.
Oh, I love that because in so quick story here. So I actually
Okay.
learned how to cook
Okay.
via watching Iron Chef America when I was living in Barcelona,
Very
trying
cool.
to write a master's thesis on China's carbon emission policies. Sounds super, super interesting, I promise you. But that was like my way to connect with food and learn about it. And now through COVID and having this time living in one place, I've reconnected that love for cooking. So hearing your story that, soul food is not just, typical collard greens, mac and cheese, biscuits. It's
Right.
really cooking from the heart. And that's the essence of all of it. And you're taking it to a new level here and introducing this in the States and introducing it to people all over the world that you can have soul food wherever you are.
Exactly. And for me, growing up, soul food, I thought everybody had it. I thought like when I had conversations with people, I was like, yeah, collard greens. They're like, what? What's that? Or like, yeah, macaroni and cheese. Like, what? I've never had this, or I've never had any of these dishes. And I'm like, really? And it just kind of sparked my interest to think like, okay, the cuisine that I grew up with is something that everyone can enjoy. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and food, it can cross cultures. everybody can relate to something. And for
100%.
me, it also takes me back to those moments of life. Like you said, for you, growing up in North Carolina and having these soul food moments.
Absolutely. And like nostalgia, I think food has a lot of nostalgia. You know what I mean? For me, growing up as a kid, my mom told me like every summer I have to go to North Carolina. And I was like, I don't really want to go. I want to be around my friends and I want to, like make friends and things like
Mhm.
that. But I was forced. And she was like, you have to go to North Carolina because that's what I did. And I was like, I don't really want to go. But then when I went, I was able to kind of connect with my family, build family relationships with all different people, and really start to really embrace what was surrounded by me. Fresh cotton like that slaves used to pick, things like homemade molasses, biscuits, a totally different dynamic for eating at the table. Which in New York, which is where I'm from, everything is very fast, fast, fast. Hey, we got to wake up, we got to go to school, we got to go. Down south, it's like everything is very slowed down. Everything is slowed down from the way they drive, from like everything. So for there, it just gave me a real appreciation for things that mattered. I think family and food and things like that.
And you're so true, because I had those same moments, coming from Midwest is definitely not as fast paced as New York. But when I made that transition to Barcelona and they're like, everything's closed on Sunday, we're going to have a
Yeah,
2 hour dinner, and it's going to be okay. Whatever happens, happens. Just let it go. That
absolutely.
is the essence that I wish more of us got back to,
Mhm.
even with the fast paced style of life.
100%, 100%. And I think it's something that's definitely needed to kind of be able to appreciate. And even with COVID, it's about perspective. It's about how you think about things. COVID for a lot of people it's been tragic, and we've lost a lot of lives and things like that. But it's been a lot of spark for a lot of people, and it definitely has helped people realize what's important. You know what I mean? For sure. So I think life is about perspective, and I think how you think about things in the moment it will help you kind of just forward in life a little bit, for sure.
Perspective is key, and you can turn any situation,
100%.
from whether it's being super dim and dark, into blessings at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
How has creative cooking shifted your perspective? Because you take working, starting at McDonald's to working in Michelin star restaurants. How has that shift now affected you today as you're working on Noble Promise?
Well, I think so. Growing up, I never was able to kind of dine in a Michelin star like restaurant. I didn't even know what a Michelin star was, until I went to college and then started becoming around people that were very knowledgeable about food, and they kind of put me in this atmosphere of fine dining. And from there, I fell in love with it. I fell in love. My first experience was at Lincoln at a 1 star, and everything was delicious. And I was like, so this is what a restaurant is. It's not just Red Lobster or like a fast food type of version. It's like you sit down, everything's homemade, everything's fresh. The chef is like vibrant and he's in the kitchen, he's cooking, and just the entire atmosphere of it, everything. I just fell in love with it. So from that experience, I said, you know what, I need to travel, I need to learn more. And I really need to just kind of get to the roots of things. So I decided to travel to Europe. So I worked in Europe for like the past 10 months. And over there, I mean, if you're talking about slow as far as North Carolina, I mean, it's very slow in certain areas as well over there. So I worked at a 2 star restaurant called Restaurant Tribeca. And the chef lived in the restaurant, like lived upstairs. And I worked in a town where it was just the restaurant and maybe a few other stores, and like that was it. So it really gave me a lot of nostalgia growing up in the summers for North Carolina. Cows and farms, and all it was the restaurant. So through these experiences, with fine dining, attention to detail, coming in with a clean coat, messes, organization, all these things that you learn at fine dining restaurants that you can't implicate at different places, that has helped me fine tune what I want Noble Promise to be. And I want to pass what I've learned and what I've sacrificed over the last 11 years to other people that aren't able or aren't fortunate enough to be able to live through these experiences, that aren't able to go to Europe, or that wouldn't haven't had the chance to work in the Michelin star experience and all these different restaurants, things like that. So I want to be able to, whenever I'm done cooking in the next 40 years or whatever the case is, I want to be able to pass the torch and teach the next generation, you know what I mean, what I've learned at these places. And things that I've learned is just like invaluable, you know. So attention to detail, organization, leadership, having the discipline, mental discipline, mindset, all these things that you really don't learn at a regular restaurant, in my opinion, of course. You learn at these high level restaurants. I want to be able to express that in my love for cooking, and also to the next generation after me with my restaurant.
Well, let's dive into this mental discipline that
Yeah.
you mentioned, because I love Chef's Table. You know, this is how my creativity sparks. So I see the intricate sides. I've hung around chefs and so forth.
Yeah.
But the mental discipline, how do you define it for people listening to this? And how does it shape the artwork, which is the final dish?
That's a great question. I think mental discipline is all about, for me, when I think about mental discipline, I think about love for me. Because cooking is it's I mean it's a job, yes, and it's a necessity, but if you don't love it, it's you really can't do much. You can't go super duper far in this, you know. So for me, mental discipline, the first step I think is self-awareness and understanding that this is what I want to do. I'm willing to die behind my love for the craft, and that I love it. I love it, and I'm all in on it. You know what I mean? Understanding that, then understanding that, you know, holidays, you're not able to experience that many holidays with your friends and things like that. Um, Family events, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, you know, I mean, sometimes are out the window because you have to focus on the restaurant and things of that sort. But just having like the love that you have for it, the passion for it, and understanding the discipline that goes into it, I think is really important. But I don't think it would be possible without the love that I have for it. You know, if I didn't love cooking, I wouldn't have the discipline or the mental discipline to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning. Like when I was in Europe, we would work like long out. Like over there is no overtime. There is no you work from sun up to sundown. You know what I
And
mean?
you're getting paid the same amount of money and you're putting
Yeah,
out the same amount of dishes.
exactly. You know what I mean? And I felt like, you know, when I went to 11 Madison Park, everybody at 11 Madison Park was from all around the world, you know, and that was a beautiful thing about working there. And then I would hear these stories about Europe, and the kind of like the working stories, and like, you know, the yelling and getting kicked out and getting spit in the face and all these crazy things. And I'm like, wow, this is insane. But like, I need to kind of go through that. I need to see what they went through. I need to like understand what sleeping in a restaurant means, or like working from like 9 a.m. to 3 a.m., 4 a.m. the next day and waking up and doing it again. Understand what this process is. So for me, I just went all in and experienced it, and it was tough. It was really, really hard. I have many of stories where, you know, wanted to cry or whatever the case is, but it definitely made me stronger. So I'm happy.
And from those moments, like you said, now looking back on it, it's an invaluable experience. And you
Absolutely.
pick yourself up and you're like, I got to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's the hard part.
without that passion, I feel like you wouldn't have picked yourself back up and done it the next day and the next
Exactly.
day and the next day.
Exactly. Just having something to prove, loving what your craft is, like all these things, like it's what's gonna help you wake up the next day when things don't go the way that you have planned, you know. Like I remember, quick story, I remember when I was in the restaurant, we were cutting vegetables and they all had to be the same size. And, you know, they got thrown out right before service happens. And, you know, everybody in the entire kitchen now is cutting our vegetables, me, my teammate and I's
Mhm.
vegetables, all the same size. And chef says, no, you're not going to cut these vegetables. You're going to watch everybody else do it. So it's like, what? And then we continued with, after that was done, we got ready for service. And then for the next 4 or 5 hours, we're cutting vegetables all the same size, like squares. And chef comes over, says, oh, you guys were doing good, but this isn't good enough, throws it away. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and he makes us redo it. So now we're cutting vegetables till about 2 o'clock in the morning. And it takes so long for it to be done. Everybody in the kitchen is helping again. You know, my partner doesn't come the next day. She's like, you know what, like I'm out, this is it, like this was fun, you know what I mean, I'm done. Now she's like, you know, switch careers or she's doing whatever she's doing. But for me, I showed up the next day, but it was difficult, like it wasn't easy to wake up the next day and be like, wow, I have to go through this again. Like, oh my God, I don't have a partner. I don't have this. Like, what am I going to do? But it's just having that love and having that passion for it to just figure it out.
And that is key in any industry of
Absolutely.
life. You have to have the passion to get to that place that you want to be
100%.
with and
Absolutely.
hone in on the craft.
Exactly. 100%.
What's been, or I guess, who has been one of your greatest inspirations for cooking?
It's a great question as well. I mean, when I think of inspirations, I think about mentorship. I've had many mentors along the way that have worked in great restaurants and kind of helped guided me in my career and things like that. Um, but I think it all starts with my family, I guess. I feel like my family dynamic is basically my biggest inspiration. Having my parents kind of raising me the way they did, being blessed to have both my parents, my grandmother working through social as a social worker, my grandfather being a Jamaican immigrant, what I mean, working for like 30 years, the importance of saving, seeing how hard he worked, seeing how hard my family worked. I think they're my biggest inspiration. And then I translate all those values of work ethic and passion and the way I go throughout my life into cooking, into what I do. Because everybody has a different palate, everybody has different flavors, things like that. But I feel like the virtues are about how you raise. That's where it starts, I think.
And if you learn that dedication early on, like you did, and it shows because you want to have still been cutting up all those vegetables. You say, this
Yeah,
is
like,
below me. Why am I still doing
this
this?
is dumb. I'm done. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. It's like I cooked for years in the States. Why do I need to keep dicing up vegetables?
Right, exactly.
But you got back up, you did it again, and that dedication shows. And those values are what stick with us through lifetime. And that's legacy is going to live down from your grandparents to your parents to you to future generations.
100%. And I think that's what's most important. I think leaving a legacy. Um, one person I look up to is Kobe Bryant. He had his passing, but one thing that he said was like he really he really valued his family, and he wanted to leave something. Like all his accolades for what he did, which was basketball, was great, but he really wanted to leave something for his family. He wanted to be able to affect the next generation, and that's where it is. So that was kind of my inspiration behind that. Just focus on that.
And then for you, what's that legacy that you want to leave behind? Is it the love for cooking? Is it still instilling those same values from your grandparents? Or is it something that you haven't found yet?
um what I want to leave through my legacy is, that's a great question. I feel like one of the greatest chefs in America to me is Thomas Keller. Okay, and the reason why he's great is not because he has 3 Michelin stars and that his food's delicious and all these things, but it's because he was fortunate enough to award other opportunities to chefs that have worked for him. If you look at Thomas Keller's like resume, the chefs that have worked under him have went to do great things, you know, and I think that's the reason why he's great for me. So for me, if I have a son one day, I want to be able to like pass him down something, hand him on to something. That's why I'm going through the entrepreneurship route, doing what I'm doing with Noble Promise. But just kind of really expressing each person's personalized story and giving them a platform to do so. So creating this platform right now, kind of cutting through the trees, going through what I need to go through, to get this platform, showcase my story, which is about Noble Promise, the way that I grew up, the stories, my fine dining, all these things, and then giving someone else that same opportunity. So Noble Promise in the future isn't going to be quote unquote soul food. It's going to be whoever that chef is in charge of that kitchen while I'm retired or whatever the case is, or if I'm running around and I'm mentoring to ship someone else, he can be, Indonesian, he can be Asian, he can be African American, he can be wherever he grew up, whatever his roots are. I want to be able to pass those tools down to my knowledge. And no promise could be doing Polish food or however that person is grew up in their story, and so on and so forth. So that way you have something that lives forever instead of just something that dies with one person.
Well, I love that. And it's always evolving in that
Absolutely.
essence. It's not one of these standalone, this is going to be the set menu. This is what it's always going to be because Sakari wanted it to be that way.
Exactly. And that's how you live forever. That's how you leave a legacy. It's having something that lives forever. That's the point. You know what I mean? And impacting the world. And that's why I try to create content. I don't want to leave this earth without, creating content and leaving something behind. That's why I've done chapter. That's why I do YouTube videos or whatever the case is. Um, in the meantime, I need to leave something behind, you know, whatever it is. I need to leave. People need to know who I am. People need to know what I've done. People need to know what my goals are, just to help inspire everyone.
And we can learn so much from your content, others who are creating content. I'm creating content. There's
Exactly.
so much to learn. And somebody out there is probably going, oh, have a story, but I can't get on camera. Or
Mhm,
I have a story, but nobody will listen.
mhm.
What would you say to that person today?
Uh, just get out there and do it. You know what I mean? Because the more that you do it, the more comfortable you're gonna get at it. I wasn't a camera person. I don't like being in front of the camera like that. But you have to be. You have to learn how to pivot if you want to get to your goals and things like that. So I feel like people, friends of mine, they hit me up all the time. They ask, Sakari, like, I just don't feel like I know what I want to do. I just, you're lucky, Sakari. You're blessed. You know that you want to do cooking, but I don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, well, you got to taste different things. You got to go out and explore. If you stay in the house doing the same thing every single day, if you stay around the same people every single day, you're not going to know what you like. You're not going to know what fits you. If you're not a video person, fine, but maybe you could write something. If you can't write, maybe you can talk about something. Or there's different outlets and different ways for everyone. My vision isn't the next person's vision. Just because what I want to do with no promise doesn't mean that the next person wants to, but it doesn't make it of lesser than. You know, as long as it's about being happy in life. That's the main goal. It's like, yeah, you want to be wealthy, yeah, you want this, the car, whatever the case is, but you want to be happy. So you have to figure out what makes you happy. And how do you do that? You taste different things, you travel, you do different experiences. Instead of going to a bowling alley on Friday, let's say, hey, we're gonna switch it up and we're gonna go to this place. We're gonna go to the spoken word place down here and we're gonna see what spoken word's about. Just trying new things. I think that's the answer.
And when you try new things, your mind starts to click and
Yeah,
your mind starts
exactly.
to go like, ooh, maybe I like this.
I like, yeah.
Maybe there's an element at that spoken word place that gets you going on a new track, on a new idea. And like you
100%.
said, Sakari's roadmap is not Susie's roadmap.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And I think through doing what I love, which is cooking, right? I love cooking, but I want to be able to do other things. I'm not just a chef. I want to be, for me, the definition of chef, the chef has to be in the restaurant, meaning he has to be cooking. There's a lot of chefs that, hey, how are you? But they never have a pot in their hand. And I want to be the chef that's always in the kitchen, that's cooking. But I also want to be doing other things as well. You know what I mean? I want to be with my family. I want to be traveling. I want to see the different worlds. I'm in partnership with Peace and Parmesan, which is a lifestyle brand, you know, which we're focused on not just, clothing, but just everything and how the way that you live. When people think about Parmesan, they think of like a rich and sharp cheese, but it's that's how we have to have the intent of how we live. So when I'm not focused on noble promise, I'm living my life in a very peaceful mindset, and I'm just trying to spread love. That's really it. Just spread love and just spread. I feel like what you put out is what you get out. So I feel like if you spread love, you get love. And that's what I believe.
And the more love you put out, the more that will come back to you, more abundance, more joy, more happiness. And I just wanted to add, as you were talking about this rich life, then, people who look at that aspect of a rich life with all of the cars or the large houses and everything like that,
Mhm.
don't get caught up on the material things. If
Exactly.
somebody is listening to this going, I got to have this latest, greatest car, I've got to, I'll make it when I get to this level. Because I've been around millionaires and I've been around all sorts of people, and they, some are happy with where they're at.
Mhm.
Others, like, it was detrimental to them. Like, they still didn't have the happiness and joy in their life.
Exactly. It's like you get whatever it is, and then you're like, now what? I mean, you have to,
What's next?
yeah, what's next? Exactly. For the people that are successful, you see that they have this mindset and they want to keep going. Look at Jay-Z. He keeps going and going and going. He has, for what people think is a lot of money, or what people think like he has everything that he needs, but he's not stopping. He's continuing the growth, and that's the type of mindset that you have to have
And the definition of success, I think you have to have, has to be one that you are happy with yourself.
within yourself. Absolutely.
And
100.
it's not, Jay-Z's definition of success for my life is
Exactly.
going to make me successful,
Exactly.
and it's not going to make you successful.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
um, what has been some of your favorite things to cook over the years, or now even?
hmm Well, right now, I mean, just to speak about what I'm doing right now,
Mhm.
I'm working on a partnership with Resonant, which is a company based in New York City. And what they do is they take like a high value property that's not being utilized in the market, and then we turn that into an event space for up and coming chefs to kind of showcase what they're doing. So I'm working in partnership right now with them, and for me, what I did was I turned my basement, into my R&D kitchen. When I say R&D, what do I mean? I mean research and development. So like kind of going through different recipes, trying to figure out things, and focusing on what I want Noah Promise to be. And to pivot back, it's about having a soul of a dish, right? So one of my favorite things that I love to cook is, or one of my favorite dishes that I'm in the lab right now testing before we even came on here, was my great grandmother's recipe, which is a snow cream and her mayo cake. So
Okay.
really, really interesting, really, really different. So when I came back from Europe, I wanted to, my grandmother got sick, but she's better now, which is great, thank the Lord. And I went down south, and I kind of just needed to have that nostalgia again, and I need to kind of really feel my roots again. And I sat with my great grandmother, who's 96 years old. She's still kicking and living,
That's
you
amazing.
which is awesome. And she gave me, she talked to me about growing up. She talked to me about what she liked to make, and she gave me like basically all the recipes. And one handwritten recipe that she gave me was her mayo cake, which she uses mayo inside the cake to make it really, really moist. And another thing growing up was she used to make snow cream. So in the South, what it is that it doesn't snow that often as it does in New York. So what they do is they collect the snow. So they go out, they put a bucket out, and they collect all the snow. They take the snow and then they make ice cream out of it. And then they call it snow cream. And then they have it in the freezer, and then they just have it whenever you need it.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I love it, and I think it's a really, really cool pre-course dessert that I'm working on, and paired with my mayo cake, and I think it's really awesome.
Ooh, any special flavors going into it? Added flavors, or are you sticking to original?
So I'm sticking to original, but I'm really highlighting those original flavors. So like vanilla, turmeric, and like turmeric is has its own unique flavor as well. Um, and turmeric is used in a lot of Indian cuisine or Jamaican cuisine and things like that. So really highlighting the turmeric, really highlighting the vanilla, and just making something really simple and delicious.
Well, that sounds so good. I'm going to have to make my way to New York to try this. And I love how innovative that is, taking empty space that's not being used and creating an event out of it. And it not only helps the property, not only helps the chefs like you, it helps everybody get back into that soul of like enjoying a dish and going to a restaurant experience that is different from what you would normally do, to have these creative thoughts and just have a different night.
100%. And I think that aspect, it's not lost. I feel like a lot of people got discouraged with COVID. They think, oh well, restaurants are done. You know what I mean? But everybody has to eat. It's a necessity to eat. And I think with this long, you know, surplus amount of months going without, being able to really dine in a restaurant and things like that, I think it's missed. The same way that movie theaters are missed. I think that really being able to have the ambiance, really like listen to your favorite 90s music, what I mean, smell different herbs, eat some delicious food with some great people. I think those nights are missed, and I think that will never go away.
100% with you. like the whole aspect of it is missed. And when you understand eating and dining as an experience, because it is in any restaurant that you go to,
Absolutely.
from that experience versus having it at your house, unless you're setting different moods every single night and different Spotify playlists and,
Right.
making it a thing in the house, like a different cuisine every night, or different herbs where you're going to have some of these things, you're still not going to have the same essence of what you said, like having a new experience and the
Absolutely.
whole ambiance.
100%. 100%. And it gets me excited just talking about
Oh, I feel yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm ready to jump on a plane. Like, when
it.
can I come eat
Mhm.
Sakari's food? I would it Everybody has those, like you said, those elements that bring them back to home. Like you
Mhm.
mentioned, turmeric and vanilla. What are some of those other flavors that you love to incorporate into your cooking?
Um, well, I think I love curry. Point blank period. I love curry. So the way that I grew up was that cooking gave me some type of freedom. My parents were like, they were a little discouraged in some points. They were supportive, but they were like, get out the kitchen. You're gonna cut yourself, things like that. My grandmother kind of gave me the freedom to say, hey, you can make breakfast, you can make this. So my grandmother's from the South, but then my grandfather grew up in Jamaica. So my grandfather's sister actually taught my grandmother all these amazing Jamaican dishes just to kind of cook for him. So growing up, I would eat Southern food. So we would have like biscuits with molasses and like, shrimp and grits or whatever for like breakfast and things like that. And then we would have like curry goat for dinner. You know what I mean? And all these things aren't really known to a lot of people. I thought everybody ate like curry goat or curry chicken for dinner. I thought like that was like a hidden secret. I was like, yeah, like curry goat. They're like, what? What's that? Or yeah, jerk chicken. They're like, huh? You know what I mean? Things like that. So I love I love curry as far as like the number one thing. I love molasses, homemade molasses, like with sugar cane, really dark and rich. I think I love using molasses. I love using spices. When you look at the West Indian cuisine, they use a lot of spices from India, and it kind of originates from that. So just kind of understanding your roots. I love to use fresh ingredients. I love herbs. Um, I love being able to use, especially when I came back from Europe. I love being able to use whatever's around you and just kind of making your own. That's kind of how I got on Chopped, which was like growing up, we don't have chicken all the time, and we don't have this all the time. So what we did was just, okay, we got a can of beans and we got this, and okay, we're gonna get this in the fridge, and all right, we're gonna put this together, and that's your dinner. Like that's just another day of growing up. And then I watched
Right.
Chopped, and I was like, oh wait, this is actually a show.
I do this every day, you know?
Like yeah, what do you mean? Like all right, this is awesome. Like you could just this is what I do at home all the time. Like it's no big deal. So that's kind of what inspired me to get to Chop. But I just feel like yeah, spices and just whatever's around really, spices and herbs.
Let's talk about molasses, because in the States, unless you're in the South, molasses is like that lone thing that's standing maybe next to maple syrup, and
Right,
all of it's on the shelves, unless you're making some ginger molasses cookies or something.
right.
It's like that hidden ingredient. Like here in the Midwest, it's like, I don't know, just buy sugar or honey. Um, how
Right,
do
right,
you
right.
use it in your cooking? And how would you tell people to use it so it doesn't scare them away from molasses?
Well, you can mix molasses with like, I mean, if you think about barbecue, you can like put molasses in it. I love molasses. I growing up we used to eat it with biscuits. So I mean, eating it with biscuits. My great grandmother she would make molasses bread, which is really interesting. So you can have molasses bread. You can do a barbecue sauce with it. You can like cook down anything that needs something dark. So if it has brown sugar, substitute with molasses. If you're making a braise, when I say braise, I mean cooking something like a protein in a liquid for a very long time. Anything that would call for spices, anything that would call for brown sugar, ketchup, anything like that, throw molasses in there, and then you're gonna like open up your flavor, and it's gonna be like, wow, what is this like? What is this weird kind of like deep, dark secret? And it's like, oh, it's molasses, and I love it.
Sounds so good. Do a 1-to-1 ratio, like if you substitute molasses for brown sugar?
Yeah, so I would do about, yeah, I would do it 1-to-1. I would do it 1-to-1. It would be just about the same.
Mm, inspire me to make so many good things now. I'm like, ooh, I've got some extra molasses up here from making cookies the other day. I, like you said, having those moments that got you to Chops. How did Chops sort of like impact your life afterwards? Did it set you on like the next level of trajectory? Because that happened 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago.
Right. So it definitely happened like 2 years ago, a little while back. I felt like for me, what it did personally was it gave me confidence. That's what it did for me. I've gotten business opportunities from it, past it, things like that. I got offered a business opportunity in California to be the chef out there, but I ended up turning it down just to kind of stay home and open up Noble Promise and like really put all my all into to me and invest in myself. So business opportunities came from it. My family and friends were happy. Maybe more Instagram followers, whatever. But for me, it was a confidence thing. It was being able to cook something out of ingredients for strangers that eat a lot of food, like eat food
Yep.
often. Yeah, and they enjoyed it. So it was just kind of like they're telling you like how much they enjoyed your food that you just kind of whipped up just because this is what you had and this is the time that you had. And them kind of instilling their belief into you, saying, "Hey, Sakari, you're gonna be like, you have a bright future ahead of you. Just keep doing what you're doing." Or like, "Hey, these flavors are delicious. Like this is really authentic." For me, it just gave me confidence. And it said, you know what? Like I need to keep doing what I need to do. I need to keep focused, keep my head down, and just kind of like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Just keep going.
And I would assume it would also be like another level of reassurance.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, absolutely. It was like, oh, all right.
It's like I made it here. I performed well cooking these dishes on the spotlight.
Mhm.
And like highest level peers are saying, you've got this.
Yeah.
And
It
that's what we all need,
And it's,
right?
yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, it starts with just cooking for your friends, right? You cook for your friends and they're like, wow, this is good. You cook for your family, you're like, oh, okay, this is good. And then the more you cook for people, the more you kind of have that reassurance. So it was just another level of that.
And it was like, keep going, noble promise. It's going to be a thing. Dive into it.
100%.
So let's talk about noble promise as we get towards the end of our time here.
Okay.
With that, do you see that opening soon, or what's that stage level look like for you?
So right now I'm doing pop-up dinners. And it all depends on, building my team. I have cooks in place that will jump on board, but now it's really finding a place. I'm looking in Brooklyn, and finding investors as well, trying to find the right partners, to because like 9 out of 10 restaurants fail. Point blank period. I could be the greatest chef, even when I was working at Ukiyo on Chef Marco, and we got a Michelin star. Our food was delicious. It was just me and him cooking food out, 30 covers a night. And it was great, but not a lot of people knew about it, and it ended up having to close, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Which sucks. But it was great food. Everybody enjoyed it, but it had to close. So trying to figure out ways to use the internet, trying to figure out ways to market, all things that I'm looking for in a partnership. Investors, trying to find the right place. So I think a time span would be, the next 12, 24 months. But really just trying to find the right partners that kind of see the same vision as me, see life the same way I do, and believe in Noble Promise, and can kind of help escalate it to where it needs to be.
And take it to that next level of having a space in a successful restaurant. And I have no doubt that the right people will come and the restaurant will be successful and you'll keep
Uh,
producing this soul food that comes from your heart.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you for that. Thank you.
If you could have a last meal, what would it be?
Oh, I got asked this question before, and I had to say it had to be lobster. I love, love,
Mm.
love, 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 love lobster. It was a growing up. It's like a celebratory food because it was so expensive. Um, just eating it with some butter. and like maybe hot sauce, maybe not, maybe Old Bay, maybe not. Just having lobster and like some butter, I'm set. Like I'm good to go. Yeah, yeah. I'm good. I could die right now just thinking about it.
Don't die on the show. We don't
No,
need any of that.
no,
You've
yeah.
got,
That's
you've got things
bad
to
publicity.
accomplish.
Yeah, we got things to do. Yeah, yeah. 100%.
Well, lobster sounds so good right now.
Oh,
It's
yeah, I love
almost dinner time here.
it. I love it.
I'm As we wrap up here,
Mhm.
what is one of the biggest blessings for you over this past year?
Um, as soon as you hear blessing, I think my grandmother, like it was a real big scare when I had to go back down south. So having her still, having my great grandmother still alive at 96, having my family around, um, COVID, COVID makes you realize what's important, right? So not having anybody in my family like pass away from COVID, um, that for me was the biggest blessing. Like just, I was in Europe when COVID happened, you know what I mean, by myself. And I was like nervous, like my family and nervous about me and all these things. So making it out of a third world country, making it out of Europe, getting back home, have everybody that's close to me be okay. I think that's the biggest blessing. I'm happy.
I love that. Family is so important, and it's
Yeah.
so important for them to have you back home too.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it goes both ways, because I know how it
100%.
is living abroad and, family are 3,000 miles away and you're like, I'll get home. Maybe you can come see me. But a lockdown throws it into a whole nother perspective.
Yeah, it was crazy. But you you get
I can
stronger.
imagine. I commend you for dealing with it, because I would have been like, oh, I'm stuck here. Where are
Yeah.
my friends?
Very hard.
Where can people connect with you, Sakari?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel, Cooking with Sakari, Noble Promise, where I put up like cooking lessons. I also put up my time in Europe. So anytime that I went through Europe, you'll see videos of that. So through YouTube, you can always search me through there. Instagram at Sakari Smithwick or Noble Promise _. And LinkedIn, I'm also on LinkedIn. And yeah, that's where you can find me. And you'll see much more content. You'll see much more things for what's upcoming now, and just kind of keep the ball rolling.
Amazing. For everybody who's listening and watching to this, wherever you are listening or watching it, you can find all of the information in the caption notes, the show notes, how to connect with Sakari, and it'll be one click away. So there are no excuses to get into that kitchen and just start playing. Sakari, thank you so much for coming on the show today, sharing your knowledge, and opening us up to this wonderful world of cooking and soul cooking that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. It was amazing. Really, really, really appreciate the reach out, and this was great, and this was fun. So this is awesome. This is awesome.
Wonderful. For everybody who is watching this and listening to this today, I encourage you, as we leave, to play in your kitchen. Make something different, pull out some more spices, play a little game of Chopped when you're deciding, should I or should I not go to the grocery store? You never know what masterpiece you'll be creating. And this has been a wrap of another episode of Coffee with Bobbi and today's guest, Sakari Smithwick. Have a great day.
Thank you too.